Howdy, everybody. Welcome to the Curving Out podcast. This is Dawson here,
This is Garrett.
and we got Mishra over here on the tech and keyboard.
Hello.
Sweet. So we're going to start it off with this, pilot episode with what we would like to become a reoccurring segment with, what's new with us outside of Magic. Garrett, what's new outside of Magic for you?
So for me, doing the whole 9 to 5 thing, so kind of working through that. But I did have a story to share because that job, I did go to dinner with my boss and some coworkers on the company's dollar, of course, because it's after work.
It's the best.
It's great. We went down here at the plaza to a steakhouse. Fantastic. But I did see something that kind of spurred me to go down the rabbit hole of Instagram, and I saw a bunch of people on the corner as I was leaving the restaurant. They were all in like running gear, and it kind of, one of them had a sign and it said KC Run Club. So they all seemed to be having a really good time. They were getting ready for their evening run. So I went down the rabbit hole of KC Run on Instagram and found their run club. And I'm a little bit further away. You guys know this.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a little bit far away, but I wanted to find a run club and see if there was one in Lee Summit, which there is. I haven't found where they're meeting up yet. But I am looking into potentially joining a run club after I saw that, because I need some vitamin D. I need to get outside, and it looked like they were all having a lot of fun. So I'm looking at something like that.
That's awesome, man. I don't think personally I could do that. I think if I start running long distance like it sounds like that is, I'll be winded and I'll need somebody to carry me on home because I don't...
I mean, you're talking to the guy that is better in water than on land, so totally understand that, but it did look like fun.
Good, that's awesome. Well, for me personally, outside of Magic, my best friend up in Boston, we've been friends for years.
Boston.
That's right. The crazy accents, but he doesn't have that because he's originally from Connecticut, but... we are huge manga and anime fans, and that's kind of one of the things that kept us close throughout the years. And we decided one day with a grand idea to write our own manga. It's going to be a web manga, and currently we just finished our character profiles, and I believe we just finished the rough draft of our power scaling and world building. So that's pretty cool. We're going to start edits probably later this week or next week, depending on whenever this podcast comes out. But it's fun, when I picked it up, I was like, this is going to be a neat idea. For those that don't know me, I do art on my free time. It's something I really enjoy, and I think I'm decent at. And so I thought it was just going to be something I could just draw like crazy, and just the story would just happen, and it was going to be easy as can be. No, it's not at all. It takes like 3 to 4 hours just to write one page of prep, and we haven't even reached the first panel yet. So it's crazy. But enough about my little silly dream there. Mishra, what have you been up to?
So last week I started playing a Starfinder game with my regular TTRPG group. For those of you who are familiar with the system, I'll be playing a Strix operative with a detective sub-theme. I am pumped to do it. It seems like a really, really fun system, moving away from 5th edition D&D and something a bit more number crunchy, and that can make the scaling get a lot higher for characters with your modifiers and we level up. I'm pumped to do it. It's a great group, and this should last me a couple of years. So
Sweet. Sounds fun.
So let me ask, where do you want to start with this discussion? So this is kind of your show. I want to see what you're running with it, what you had kind of planned.
Yeah. So what I kind of planned, I want the listeners to kind of get a little grasp on who we are, how we got started in Magic. So I can kind of start it off a little bit. So I wasn't a huge card player, but when lockdown hit, my buddy Mishra over here knocked on my door when we were in college and said, "Hey, come with me, learn how to play this new game that I found." He goes, I need a play partner." I was like, "Fine, whatever." He bought me my first standard pre-constructed deck, and we played, I think it was like 25 games the first night, and I was hooked. And after that, everybody knows once you get hooked to Magic, you have the spending problem. So, that's kind of where I started. So, yeah, Garrett, how did you get started?
Well, it sounds like you just took the example of Mishra stealing you and getting you into the game, and then decided, you know what, I want to do this with this kid over here. Because what it ended up, my experience with Magic was at first going to Collecticon with you, and I was going to the con entirely not for Magic. I was going for other TCGs. I was looking just to go shopping around, see what was around. It was the first con I had ever been to, so
Similarly.
yeah, it was a new experience. I just wanted to see what was up. Saw Vanilla Ice perform being
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was an interesting show. But aside from that, we walked by this stall with this nice older dude who was getting ready to actually pack up his stuff, and he had some of the pre-con commander decks.
Yeah, from Dominaria United, right?
Yeah, Dom-U. So it was Painbow and the Legends Matter Dihada decks. And you basically invited me. You kind of just took me and said, yeah, you should get these, and then you can come play with me and Mishra over here. And I became a reoccurring party member for you guys in your game nights. Painbow did not see the light of day for a very long time. I think I tore that deck apart and rebuilt it how many times, and it went to retirement. I didn't think it was coming out for a long time. It's getting a lot more play now. Dihada's always in the lineup. I love that deck so much for Commander.
Your Dihada deck is something to behold when it starts popping off.
Both the old build of when it was Legendary Matters, and then as I powered it up, I want to rebuild the Legendary Matters build, because that was...
It was fun. You did some cool things with it.
It was a lot of fun. Karavek was not fun for you guys, but it became one of my favorite cards, so that one may or may not make a reappearance if I re-put it together.
Sweet. Well, I'm glad I was able to drag you into the money suck hole that I was in, and still am to this day. Mishra, how did you get started? Because you are before me.
Yeah, so I was exposed to Magic all through middle and high school from a lot of my friends, through like robotics teams and academic teams. A lot of those similar people play Magic, as I'm sure many Magic players know. But cards and packs were always way too expensive to get for myself at the time. Being a high school student, didn't have the spare change. But then when I went to college, where we all met one another, I did a draft with some friends my first year. Did all right. Got stomped by a guy who drafted mono black and been playing Magic basically his entire life. And then I gave all those cards away to someone else in the draft because I thought, I won't get into this. It's not really my thing. And during COVID, like you mentioned, we were locked down, looking for things to do with one another in private, because we couldn't really socialize outside of where we were living. And during that, like I said, we went and got a couple standard pre-constructed decks. Said, let's run these against each other and see how this game works. And I've been hooked on the quality and beauty of a lot of the art, number one, and also just the construction and mechanics of the game are really smooth and operate a lot better than other TCGs from my perspective. And I just like the way it works. And since then, it's become a really good way for me, I think, to socialize with my friends, work out and solve creative problems, and itch a little bit of a competitive scratch.
Nice. So also to kind of give you guys a little insight, on our play styles, because along with this podcast, we will have a gameplay series going on. We will be focusing more on a lot of singleton 1v1 formats. It's just what we like to play. Our group's kind of thinned out a little bit since graduating from college, so it just gives us a chance to get together and play, and hopefully share you guys with the new format that's coming across the pond, and we find very fun. So I'm gonna send over to Garrett on what is your favorite commander, regular commander, and also dual commander.
Okay, so for regular commander, both in character and in gameplay, it's on the CEDH side of this conversation, but I have absolutely loved playing Obnixilis Captive Kingpin. Probably second to, or probably only thing that was able to dethrone Dihada there after playing her for a very long time. Obnixilis, I've always kind of been that aggro Rakdos type play style. I lean towards red heavily when I'm building my decks, and that as soon as I saw it being released, I was like, I've got to build this. This is something I will adore playing, and it was exactly that. On the dual commander side of things, I've been pretty exclusively on a Yoshi Maru kick, and really the only question is what partner I want to put with Yoshi. Right now I am on the Yoshi Tana train, splashing the green, not doing the Bruce Tarl thing. We'll get into this a little bit later on, because I have another comment about what I want to build with Yoshimaru that I'm currently unable to do. But I do have some plans for maybe tinkering and seeing what might theoretically be possible. It's just trying to pair Yoshi with what I think is best with him.
Nice. So lots of red in those colors is what I'm seeing so far.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a red mage at heart.
Mishra?
Yeah, I'm the newest of the three of us to get into Duel. Ironically enough, despite being around Magic in general longer. And these guys have buried the lead here, but the reason we're doing Duel is because they went to MagicCon Chicago and both top 8'd. I didn't go with them. I had some other things going on in my life at the time, but they went and they crushed it. I was cheering them on the whole time, watching whatever the site was, GG, topdeck.gg or whatever it was, that was tracking the tournament, rooting for you guys and saying, damn, that looked like a rough matchup. I hope that went well. Or, wow, you got a game off him. Good job. Oh, wow, you're going so far, 4-0 or whatever it was. So that's why we're doing Duel. So I'm the newest to Duel. But in our preliminary games, to get into the format a little bit, I tried out an Atraxa control build, and oh boy, that was incredible. One thing I like in all games is to play either a character or a build that it doesn't matter how fast it wins, as long as it can't be killed. And this sort of controlling, slow, contemplative playstyle of Atraxa leans into that quite a bit. It was a load of fun. For regular EDH, my favorite build of all time, I think it was the second deck I built and I've tinkered with since, is Rune of the Hidden Realm. It's a Bant Blink deck, and it's tricksy. It allows, otherwise 1 mana instants that just blink a creature suddenly to become effectively counter spells or draw spells. And God, these guys hate it, but there's nothing better in the game of Magic the Gathering than blinking an Agent of Treachery. And doing it multiple times in a turn, oh man, I'm sweating just thinking about it. That's me. And what about
we'll
you
grab
guys?
you a towel.
Well, I can attest that the blinking of the Agent of Treachery has made me lose more hairs in my head than I care to admit. But for me, the biggest EDH deck, and these two know it very, very well. It is Crick, Son of Yawgmoth. It is probably my signature deck, and I love playing the Bolas, Sensei's Divine Top, Aether Flux combo. They both know it. I most likely in every commander deck have a way to look at the top card of my library, play a ton of artifacts, because in my opinion that is the best thing in Magic, is the little metal trinkets that you can play, and just creating a minimum of 3 card infinite loops. So I know just paying tons of life in that deck is fun. So I'm a huge black mage at heart. I usually run almost every deck is mono color for me on my personal commander list there. If not, it has probably black in it. When it comes to Duel, like Mishra mentioned, I did go to Chicago, and I ended up doing top 4 at Chicago. So a lot of people there know me for my Feldon, my off-meta Feldon Ramanop Excavator deck, where I played a whole ton of Pioneer, Legacy, Modern, Burn, Haste staples, kind of around the Inti form. But currently, I was gifted a deck by Garrett to test out, and it is Slimefoot and Squee, and that thing has to be the funnest thing I've played in a long time, where I get to have the same type of interaction with the red spells that I really enjoy, of just bolting birds left and right, and then also the reanimator factor of black, and nothing's truly dead if you're playing black. So I really want to thank Garrett for building that and letting me test it for him. He did sadly take it back, as much as I begged him not to.
And don't worry, I think I'll be seeing it again. Maybe not my version, but maybe we can mirror match it sometime, because I don't think you'll be without the deck for very long.
No. I will certainly build it myself, and then, as you said, the mirror match, stating it now, I will win.
Okay. Noted. We'll see about that, but it's noted.
So, yeah, as we have kind of talked about, MagicCon Chicago was really where we got into Duel. Garrett and I went. Mishra was unable to go, sadly. But really, we were looking for an event that we could do while we were there, because we were there for 3 days, and we wanted to really maximize our time, because there's only so much time you can look at the cases without going broke.
And kind of an aside to that, I know as a talking point for multiple content creators, the venue was too small for the size of event that they held in Chicago. They needed much more space for what all the people that were there.
Yeah, I think Gavin's event, where you got the secret cards or the playtest cards,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was going on right as our event was going, and I think they took up almost the entire half of one massive event hall. And I don't think if you've seen this event hall, if you've been there or not, you might have gone to Chicago. But I think that place holds about 2 football fields. So the fact that so many people were playing in this event on one half of it was insane to watch, and was very hard to concentrate while I was playing competitively and trying to win.
Well, it was also the competitive area wasn't even blocked off to during matches.
No.
You have an interesting story about that, because a certain content creator who is well known in our community actually kind of spectated over one of your games.
Yeah, so for a little bit, I was playing in a Traxa deck against my Feldon deck, and the professor kind of walked by and looked down and see what we were playing. So to me, I was giddy as a schoolboy. He didn't say a whole lot. He didn't say anything to me. He didn't watch for maybe more than a brief minute, just passing by, because he was getting ready for Gavin's event. But I was nervous, and the last thing I wanted to do was get my butt whooped in front of the professor, and that's exactly what happened. I got my butt whooped.
Yeah. But that does go to showcase, the space was tight, people were moving, right behind you, basically the entire time we were playing, because it was packed.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely could have used a bigger venue, that's for sure.
And the venue had space, they just need to rent out more of it realistically.
There's that extra wall that they could have gotten. So, but there's a little bit of information about us, how we got interested in 1v1, singleton formats, how we play most of the time, what we like to do, and kind of who we are outside and inside of Magic. So, our first big Duel Commander topic on this podcast. It just so happened that it fell in, a week, 2 weeks ago, right before, when we were prepping for this. But the big news on the ban list is Rafine, Scheming Seer, was banned as a commander card. So you can still play in the 99, but it's banned as a commander.
And let's be honest here, that is virtually the only place. Yeah, you might see one or two of them like in some off decks, some off meta decks, but you weren't going to see it otherwise.
No. So personally, I think it's a good thing that, Rafine is kind of put to the ban list, maybe for a little bit until, some other commanders are printed to where it's an even playing field on both ends. To be honest with, how heavy the format is and the aggressive side, having a very, aggressive but still able to react Esper commander is pretty tough to deal with, especially for me when I was playing like mono red and I was, prepping for the matchup. I was like, I am terrified of this golden sphinx.
Yeah. Yep.
So I that's the biggest, and I think that's the only ban that we've gotten recently.
I think the only ban we've gotten so far in 2024 as
Yeah.
of this recording.
So, yeah, I think it's a short time coming. New Capenna seems like just a little bit ago, but
Maybe we're showing our age with that.
a little bit. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, speaking of ban list, yes.
As far as Rafine goes, did you look, because on the Duel Commander website they actually gave their reasoning for why they banned it. Did you pull that up at all?
I hadn't caught it.
Okay, so they specifically noted some things. They obviously mentioned the Ward 1.
Yeah, that's insane.
Which, first off, that is going to, because of its cost, they said compared to its cost, that Ward was it fit such a niche place in the meta. There was really, like you said, nothing quite compared to that. But then, as if that weren't enough, it also had 4 toughness that was going to, even if you could get around Ward, it got over most of the common kill spells in the format.
Mm-hmm.
So it's effectively why Lithomatic Barrage became an incredibly relevant card in the meta for the format, because it was a 1-drop card that could hit the most prolific thing
And you wouldn't
in the aggro meta.
And you wouldn't have to pay the ward on it either, because ward counters it, and
it can't be countered.
pay
Exactly.
to go. But I still think Lithomatic Barrage is a card that should be included in every red deck. At the very minimum, it's a shock. At the very maximum, it's 5, and it's uncounterable. So it's like
it does everything you want it to do.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect card when you're running red in this format, because you're trying to go fast if red's in your deck, and it handles a lot of things. I think the only thing currently it can't kill on one shot is the stupid Atraxa. Sorry, I'm saying stupid, but Atraxa has beaten me senseless.
Yeah, understandable.
In tests at the tournament,
I didn't actually get paired up against an Atrax at the tournament, so I need to play Mishra over here's with it. But other than that, I have not actually ran into one.
You're the luckiest man I know then. So
yeah, I can be thankful for a little bit longer.
Yeah. So, but kind of riffing off the ban list a little bit, I was just kind of curious, because I've got some thoughts on cards on the ban list as commanders, or just on the ban list in general. What would you put on that ban list, or even just take off?
So as far as putting on the ban list, I genuinely do like the meta where it is right now for the most part. I don't think it needs a whole lot of changes. I think obviously the meta is very heavily favored towards aggro decks in the current situation. You're going to see red deck wins, you're going to see Yoshi builds, you're going to see Inti, which is another, I guess, red deck wins. So that was by far the largest portion of Chicago outside of the 2 Atraxas that end up making top 8 with us.
Yeah, so that was huge. Atraxa was huge.
I do think that probably Atrax is one of the best set decks in the format at the moment. If there were, largely just because, kind of like the whole war discussion, it doesn't matter. You can only counter it. It doesn't matter if you can kill it, other than if it keeps swinging in at you. You're getting that huge value off of its ETB, and you're, at worst, you say, okay, I just drew more interaction. Let me get another 10 cards in a turn or two if I didn't already have more than the 7 mana up. So if we're talking about, like, maybe, if anything, one of the free blue counter spells, that it's iffy because control isn't as powerful in the meta, but there's one deck that uses it so well that, and I don't think it affects the deck. I don't think it makes it unviable, but I think the combo, I specifically noted, like, one of Force of Will, Daze, or Force of Negation.
Yeah.
Just one of those. Bring it down a little bit where it doesn't have free interaction, on top of they're just going to leave their mana up anyway. They're going to play Archmage's Charm. They're going to play every other counter spell that is viable for them.
Yeah, for sure.
So just make it where something can be shoved at them.
Yeah, I would agree with just one of those kind of reaching the ban list, because, you know, in red, which is probably the most common color on the
pie chart.
Meta list right now. I think it's in everything. It's in your deck. It's in my deck. It's in Slap and Squee. It's in Blaster Guy. You know,
you're saying that the new Eris.
Eris is running it. You know, red's pretty common. So there's only 3 counter spells that are really viable in this fast-paced competitive environment. You know, Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blast, and Tybalt's Trickery. And sometimes you don't even want to run Tybalt's Trickery depending on who you're playing against.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I think, you know, as what seems to be the trend as looking at the lists and how things are going, I think blue's starting to get popped down a little bit, you know, because it seems to be pushing more towards, like you said, an aggressive style of play. I think a kind of busted card, and I kind of felt bad playing it, and I still do when I do play it, is Jessica's Will. You know, in the red deck wins.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful, especially in Feldon or Inti. You know, those are 2-drop commanders that you can mountain, Feldon, next turn, mountain, tap, Jessica's Will. Because on
5-6 mana on turn 2 on top of,
yeah, it's insane. Or you could even go even buster on turn 2 with mountain, Simian Guy. Boom.
And it is kind of interesting that virtually, not entirely, but most of the cards that give you extra value for having your commander are already banned in the format. All of the free commander cycle cards are already banned. It isn't free, which is obviously a difference maker, but it effectively is because it replaces its own mana.
Yeah, it's kind of like Chandra Torch of Defiance on steroids. You know, it's
a great comparison.
You know, that's run in every, you know, Pioneer red burn deck, including a lot of these, you know, CDH lists sometimes run them if they're trying to go fast and trying to get that extra mana. I know some people run in their Godo lists. I run that card in my Feldon deck, you know, because you want the red mana or you want the ability to exile cards. You know, that kind of plays around, surprisingly, the unbanned Hull Breacher, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which also, I love the fact that Hull Breacher in regular Commander, I am all for it being banned, but I love the fact that it's unbanned here and we can play in this format. I think it's much more reasonable in a 2-player format. I love it.
Yeah, so it kind of gets away from that, and, you know, but exiling 3 cards, and when you're in red trying to go fast, you know, you are really getting at, you know, lightning bolt shock. You know, you can get up to, you know, 10 damage right away. So, but
and on the kind of other side of that token, you said about unbanning cards, and I alluded to this earlier. I want to see Vile Smasher. It's selfish. I know it's probably not a good thing for the meta, but I want Mardu Yoshi, and there's no other. I'm not wanting to play Vile Smasher at all. I just want Mardu Yoshi.
You know, if that comes unbanned, you know how many little bombs that little Galvin's throwing around that's just going to be whopping haymakers. It's insane.
Then come out with another Rakdos partner. I just want Mardu Yoshi. I don't want to abuse the Goblin. I don't want to go Goblin mode on people. I just want the red, white, and black dog.
I can't
It's
picture that.
selfish. It's selfish. It's not real, but that's what. Let me dream.
I'll let you dream at that. I don't see it coming off the list anytime soon.
It's not, but I can dream.
Yeah. So with, we're talking about a lot that it seems that Duel Commander is very aggro-centric. It's like a lot of cards are red, a lot of cards are green outside of your Gears and Starn or your Atraxa, but even that runs green. So
kind of the Esper or Esper Plus builds, Tivid.
It seems to be like the one
yeah.
big. I think Eris is making the charge right now, but the new one from Outlaws of Thunder Junction Commander set. But for the most part, there's maybe one or two controls, depending on your spending limit, you can play. Because I know that Atraxa deck gets hiked up in price.
Yeah, immediately you get into 3 or more colors, and if you're considering dual lands, if you're in a non-proxy environment, yes.
Yeah. So, personally for me, with the meta and how things are going, I personally love an aggressive style of play. But the thing is that a lot of the artifact combo type things that I like to do are expensive. And when you have the control aspect of things, I want to be able to play. And some of them are banned. My favorite combo has Sensei's Divining Top in it, and that thing's banned. But I understand, because imagine having Traxa with Sensei's Divining Top, getting to see...
Every deck is playing Urza Saga. It's fetchable.
Yeah, it's going to be insane. So I would like to see, it push a little bit towards, easing up on combo a little bit. But selfishly, I want artifact combo. So some of these just aren't... Some of these really fun commanders that you can play in EDH, which I would love to do, just aren't viable in the format, but they do really fun, cool things that would be even more interesting in this very limited life format.
And I will admit I may be wrong in this opinion. This is fully opinion. I think we're talking about control not being incredibly relevant, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. Realistically, it is the second most. Combo is the least common portion of the meta right now. It is the worst positioned, and I think that's partially because control is becoming a little bit more relevant. You're getting more Tibbet, you're getting more Atraxa, and things like old Stick Fingers. It already kind of fell apart to a Swords to Plowshare. It already a Solitude, anything that could exile the Broodlord and stop the chain.
Yeah.
But now it's falling apart even further because Gearson, Atraxa, Eris, they don't even have to be control builds. They have blue in them, and you're going to be running some blue counter spells. And it's just another threat that's like, okay, I don't just have to watch out for these exile spells. One counter spell can ruin my day now too, and you're going to see more of them when there's splashes of blue in the meta. So if we're talking about things we'd like to see, I might see, I'd like to see a little bit more viability for combo, just so it's a little bit better blend.
Yeah.
But we'll say, kind of coming from originally CDH Commander kind of background as far as my Magic experience, I do really enjoy the fact that I can come over here and it's just let me turn cardboard sideways and swing stuff, and it's really fun. I do like the aggro side of it, and I don't think it's wrong that is a large proportion of the meta.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's fun to turn cardboard sideways. That's the cool part. That's Magic at its core, I think.
Mishra might disagree with us on this topic, just ever so slightly. He's the control player of the three of us.
Yeah, I like interacting on the stack, as I think anyone could have probably picked up on. And to that end, obviously we're new to the format, me especially so. But just looking at the ban list, the exclusion of Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time, I know they're really good cards, and I know they're limited, restricted, or highly used in other formats. I get that. But can a man delve away some cards to draw some more cards? It just feels good. And then outside my wheelhouse is lands decks. Now, they just don't exist. As far as I know in Duel Commander, if you look at MTG Top 8, the meta breakdown, none of them appear to be lands decks out and out. And this is because Field of the Dead's banned, Strip Mine's banned, Wasteland's banned, Scapeshift is banned. And it feels like that archetype altogether, whether it is a controlling lands deck or a combo lands deck, just seems to be effectively banned out of the format. And I wasn't around long enough to know if it ever was a boogeyman, but it just seems unfairly attacked, because I don't see it taking over because it won't be as fast as aggro. It probably won't be able to react in the stack nearly as well as some control or combo decks will. So I'd like to see maybe even just Field of the Dead, so we don't have the Fields Bads and Strip Mines and Wastelands. But maybe Field of the Dead unbanned, maybe Escape Shift, so you can get a Valakut as a reasonable win con and that sort of thing.
I think there is one deck, and I'm considering putting it together. It's the Gruul God, Clothis, I believe.
Clothis, yeah.
Clothis, yeah. Clothis. It runs like ruination and a bunch of land destruction, and it's a kind of land matters, like it runs
That's fun.
tons of fetches.
You gonna run Armageddon in it?
Can't run Armageddon, it's not white.
Oh, yeah.
But the idea is kind of the same. It's
Armageddon's white.
Or no, Clothis isn't.
Clothis, was it red green?
It's Gruul. That's it. You can't
that's
run
the
Armageddon
type of effects that you're running.
Yeah, but it is like an Armageddon style of you're trying to destroy lands, you're trying to use your own lands to ramp faster with its first ability, and then later in the game you're just exiling, or as interaction you're exiling pieces from something like Slimefoot and Squee that they would be targeting and getting supplemental damage. I think it's a unique build. I don't think it's extremely relevant.
Yeah,
it's very fringe, but it does see some play.
Yeah, it could be like a one-off that just catches people by surprise. The red, so the red Armageddon is with the Yokel Hops.
Yeah.
So that was the car I was thinking of. So I think just getting rid of people's lands, is already, you're already off to a slow start without, a lot of the regular EDH mana rocks. And so I think that to me would be very scary. And I think playing it, or if I saw it in the tournament, I would very much focus on a lot of removal, or how am I going to remove this? So I will be shaking my boots if you ever bring that to the table. So fair warning.
That'll be fine. I'm interested to try it out. Again, I don't think it's the most powerful, but I also think I think it's good enough that it might steal a tournament. Like, I think it's positioned well enough that if we see on MTG Top 8, it places first, and I think it has once or twice that I've seen. It can do that, but it's not going to be a regular representative on those lists.
Yeah, probably not. So, we've talked about 1v1. We've talked about Duel Commander. We've talked about us ourselves. I think it's time to get into a little bit of the fun part, because this past week and a half, some Modern Horizons 3 spoilers have been getting out, and Wizards has confirmed some of them. So to keep it on topic a little bit before we start getting into like what we're gonna build for our personal selves. Are there any spoilers that you think have come out that you will see probably in these singleton formats?
I noted 3 honorable mentions that I thought might see play, 3 that I thought would definitely see some play in certain decks, one of which I will definitely be testing out in Yoshimaru. And then I saw 1 that I thought might be a commander that could see play in Duel Commander. I wasn't positive, but I could see it working. I would have to see kind of what people are building, but the vision was there.
Yeah. All right. So, what are your honorable mentions? What didn't make your list at all?
So, I don't have the full name down here, but Philia, the new dog.
Yes, the little corgi pup.
Yes, the corgi. The blink seemed interesting. I mean, removing somebody else's creature as you attack until end step, just every turn. Okay, your biggest thing. Yeah, it doesn't exist. And let me go in for an attack. Seems pretty good.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, Philia Exuberant Shepherd is a 1 and a white legendary creature dog with flash. Whenever Philia attacks, exile up to 1 other target non-land permanent. At the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If it entered under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Philia. And Philia is a 2/2. That is probably the goodest boy in
Hey, watch it now.
Commander now.
I love my Yoshi.
Yoshi's good, but I mean, have you seen the art on this card? I mean,
he's adorable.
Yeah. So my girlfriend is in love with him. So she doesn't play Magic, but I think she was tempted to after seeing that card.
Build her a deck and we can maybe convince her.
Maybe. So, all right. Next honorable mention.
I had the Chthonian Nightmare, which this card I think it's slightly worse than another card that is legal in this format, and which is Reoccurring Nightmare. Mm-hmm. It does something very, very similar, but I thought there could potentially be some play in like an old Stick Fingers deck that just wants this type of effect. So I wanted to bring it up, even if I didn't necessarily think it would outright see play. And I would be interested to see what you guys think. Like, it is repeatable graveyard recursion.
Yeah,
it's solid.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting prize slot in the test. And again, Chthonian Nightmare is 1 in a black enchantment. When Chthonian Nightmare enters the battlefield, you get 3 charge counters. Pay X charge counters, sacrifice a creature, return Chthonian Nightmare to its owner's hand, return target creature card with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate only as a sorcery. Well, first off, I am very happy to see charge counters anywhere. I was like a kid in the candy store. I think Mishra knows. I think I texted him when I picked up the science deck from Fallout. I was like, oh my gosh, charge counters are back. I'm going to make all of my little robots do their thing. But I do think that, Chthonian Nightmare probably deserves some playtesting to see, maybe there is a commander that's not in the meta that can really make this thing hum. Because a lot of charge counter cards just came out, like brand new ones. You got the Synth Eradicator from Fallout, which is the one in a red haster that exiles a card. If not, you get charge counters. I mean, it's a lot of those cards have come out, so maybe you can slot them in somewhere. Find a new card, invent something new that's just gonna pop off and ruin someone's day at a tournament. So I'm excited to see it get tested. And I'm sure you're gonna throw it in there, and I can't really speak on it too much until I've seen this thing in action. It sounds like it wants to be busted.
Exactly.
I'm just not sure.
It reads like a good card.
Yes, and I'm just not sure if Duel Commander is the spot where it's going to be busted, but I can almost guarantee some CEDH deck out there is going to crack it open. So, all right, one last honorable mention. What is it?
It's Psychic Frog. I don't know if this is actually good or not, but it is a 2-drop 1/2 whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you get to draw a card. It's card draw. It can't be that bad. And then it also powers itself up. You can discard a card to put a 1/1 counter on it. So I can see a world in which this card is something that you want to feed your graveyard in a
kind of reoccurring fashion, reanimator.
A reanimator play style. It is in a little bit of a weird color pie for that.
Yeah, so Psychic Frog is 1 blue, 1 black for a creature frog. Whenever Psychic Frog deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, draw a card. Discard a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Psychic Frog. Exile 3 cards from your graveyard. Psychic Frog gains flying until end of turn. And I think that this card kind of pushes towards kind of a Grixis Reanimator like you're talking about. And I think the card that comes to mind that's currently in the meta that this would kind of work really well with is Inti. Inti says whenever you discard a card, that's where it's reading that as. So while you're also discarding, you're also getting something in return from that if you're in Grixis. Having that red, discard ability, there's a lot of synergy with that because you're, that color, you have Faithless Looting, you've got Unexpected Windfall, you have a lot of discard
Now,
effects.
in days gone by, that would have been something that maybe Kess would want.
Yes.
But Kessa's not really seeing play anymore. Is there anything in the meta
Not that I've
really
seen
rocking
recently.
Grixis?
No, I would love to see that come back. I think the one thing that Mishra and I can agree on is that Grixis is a phenomenal pairing of colors.
Grixis rules.
Yeah. Grixis is extremely powerful. It is one of the only combinations, 3-color combinations left I haven't built in regular Commander, which is so odd because it's my 3 favorite colors.
Yeah.
And I just haven't built them together.
Yeah, I built a lot of Grixis decks. They come in, they come out. There's a whole lot. I've built it from super competitive to super not. So, but all right, what is you said you had 3 regular things you're going to see, like 3 cards that have been
That
previewed.
I'm sure we'll see play.
Yes.
First one, probably going in that Atraxa build, Flare of Denial.
Mm-hmm.
It's a counter spell.
Oh, every counterspell goes in that deck.
Yeah, it's
And for the listeners at home,
Yep.
Flare of Denial is 1 blue for an instant, of course. You may sacrifice a non-token blue creature rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Counter target spell.
Now, I said it would probably go on Atraxa. Atraxa doesn't run a ton of creatures, especially blue creatures, which is the only problem I see with this card. It will still see play in decks.
Yeah, I could see it,
But I could see even in Atraxa there being a 1 and 2 blue. Like, instead of, like, Archmage's Charm, it's...
Yeah, Archmage's Charm is 3 straight blue.
Yes.
So
you're running things like that effect anyway, so even without that attachment to it, it's still a blue counterspell that I think is viable in that deck.
Yeah, I think just having that less blue pip, that 1 less blue pip than Archmage's Charm, I think gives it a little bit more versatility. You don't have to leave up as many islands as you would need to for Archmage's Charm. So it gives you a little more flexibility there, but I think it would go very well probably in your Eris deck or your Gears Star deck, just where there's more prevalent creatures out in the battlefield.
Eris only runs like 2 or 3 creatures.
Yeah.
In the 99, so
But
that would be
you're getting,
limited.
but you're getting more cards in that bin.
But yes.
So if you sag it, you can counter it and go.
Yep.
So that it gives you that kind of flexibility if you need it. And plus, it's 3. If you're running Eris, you probably have a lot of mana
Yeah.
in general when you're
It
playing
is
that
keeping
card.
a lot of mana up as well.
So I think it's a little bit more viable there, but I do agree that we'll probably see it run somewhere, probably by Mishra for us in the near future.
Yeah, speaking of the comparison to Archmage's Charm, I don't necessarily know if that's a 1-for-1 slot because the versatility of Archmage's Charm comes from its modality, specifically the second mode, which allows a target player to draw 2 cards, which is so if you're ahead, you need to keep your opponent down. So obviously, it's a great 3-mana counter spell, just with flat counter target spell. But the other option to draw 2 cards, if you need to dig out of a hole, try and push an advantage or get some of that card advantage, I think is really, really good. That the Flare of Denial doesn't bring to the table. And as you guys both said, Atraxa and a lot of these other spellslinger decks don't actually commit a lot to the board, except for super, super key pieces, which you're not going to be wanting to sacrifice to a counter spell. So it will be more often, I think, in those decks cast for the 1 blue, which, again, it's a 3-mana counter spell slot, only very minimally, it seems like, actually free. So I don't know if it'll be...
Yeah, well, I know
That's
Gears
what
of
it
Starn
was.
is in that more aggro, so I think that's probably where it's going to be seeing the most play. But yeah, I think Out of Control, Eris is probably going to see the most of it. You know, Atraxa is probably going to use that Archmage's Charm to draw the 2 extra cards. You know,
More
get
often
more,
than-
try and find more lands or interaction.
It's not really ever looking to, but it will do it more often than probably it wants to necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree that is a fair comparison. But the Atraxa build still runs a decent number of conditional counter spells.
It runs enough.
I would be interested in play testing it.
Yeah. All right. What's number 2 on the list?
It would be the Necrogoyf.
Yeah.
This one it's Tarmogoyf sees play. It's black Tarmogoyf
Yeah. For those, it's Nethergoyf.
or Nethergoyf, excuse me.
Nethergoyf. 1 black for a creature. Lurgoyf. I mean, sorry if I butchered that. I mean, that's Lhurgoyf. That's just someone smashed the keyboard. But Nethergoyf's power is equal to the number of card types among cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number plus 1. Like you said, it's just Tarmogoyf and cheaper.
Yes, it's extremely good.
Yeah, not to mention, it has an escape cost of 2 and a black. Exile any number of other cards from your graveyard with 4 or more card types among them. So you can get it back.
Mm-hmm.
So this, from the Slimefoot and Squee deck that you built, that I'll
Yes.
probably build myself, I think I'll probably slot Nethergoyf in instead of Tarmogoyf.
I think both of them are right.
They both are. I mean, they're both haymakers, and they're cheap.
I mean, I've thought about when I was building it, doing prime time in there as well. Just
Oh, yeah.
the deck is very low to the ground, but having that haymaker where it just threatens anybody coming at you is so important, and you're filling your graveyard in that deck, so it doesn't hurt.
For sure. And then, last but not least, what is the card that you think we'll see play lastly?
Saved it for last. Technically, I have one commander I thought might be in there as well, but realistically, the only other card in the 99 that I see super viable is the new Ajani, Nikal Pariah.
Yes. Yeah, so...
And that is something I'm looking to play in Yoshimaru.
Yeah, that I am a huge fan of the Origin set where you have, JVP, you've got Chandra, you've got Gideon, who's not really Gideon with his name there, Liliana, and Nissa. So I'm glad to see other notable Oathwatch planeswalkers coming in with their little baby forms. So for those of you who don't know, Ajani is a flip card. So on the front side, Ajani Nikal Pariah is 1 and a white legendary creature cat warrior. When Ajani Nikal Pariah enters the battlefield, create a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token. Whenever 1 or more other cats you control die, you may exile Ajani, then return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. Its flip side is Ajani Nicodle Avenger, one angry-looking buff cat. It is a legendary Planeswalker Ajani, so these flip early versions of the Oathwatch have... What am I? You're
Gatewatch.
Gatewatch,
Yeah,
thank
you're
you.
good,
I'm
you're
thinking Oathbreaker. I'm lost in it. My apologies, friends. So it's keeping with the original 5 of the Gatewatch, keeping that flip into a Planeswalker when they receive their spark. So on it starts with 3 loyalty. It has a +2 loyalty ability of put a +1/+1 counter on each cat you control. And then it has a 0 loyalty. Create a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token. When you do, if you control a red permanent other than a Johnny Nicodle Avenger, he deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to any target. That's probably the biggest one it's probably going to see. -4, each opponent chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents they control, then sacrifices the rest. So it's got a little board wipe at the end, but I don't see people
a one-sided board wipe.
But I don't see people +2ing it very often. I think, in the Duel Commander format, especially in your Yoshi Tana deck, you're putting out a lot of one drop, 2 drop
You
things.
have red creatures anyway. You want to deal that extra damage.
Exactly.
You're right.
So that's probably gonna be the biggest one there. And thankfully, when it comes to the token side of things and the +1/+1 counters, Rabo is banned. Because my oh my, those cats would be terrifying.
And I'll just reiterate this. This costs 2 mana.
Yes.
And it exiles itself when it flips. So that's 2 Yoshi activations, assuming one of your cats dies, which you are throwing that cat at the opponent every chance you get. At 2/1, you want it to die. You want them to block your cat.
Yeah, I don't see a problem if flipping this in any way. I mean, if push comes to shove and you really need these extra triggers, which you could do on turn 3. So turn 1 for you have Yoshi. Boom, Yoshi. Turn 2, a Johnny. And then for all intents and purposes, you create the cat, you can flip it right away if you have a Simian Spirit Guide and a Shock. Or a Simian Spirit Guide and a Bolt. Not that it's the most optimal moment, but if you want to get, outpace somebody really fast, if that seems to be, later in your matches, that's an option.
I mean, think of a stalled out board state, and let's say you have already set yourself up, you have the mana, and Atraxa just came down, they haven't gained life yet, but it's about ready to get out of hand, but you have a decent board, you just can't kill. Atraxa just came down, tides are about ready to turn. If you drop this for 2 mana, which is not hard to do, create the cat, like you said, kill your own cat with one of your effects. I mean, the deck has... Iganjo should be able to even kill the cat off of its attack, because I don't believe Iganjo says opponent controls, but I could be wrong on that. Bolt,
Mishra's going to check us
Chain
on
Lightning.
that one.
Yeah, Mishra can check us on that. But there are multiple cards in the deck that you can just say, okay, counter on Yoshi, flip this. The deck is mostly Boros with a splash of green, so you're almost certainly going to have a red creature. You're probably going to deal a decent chunk of damage, and that could be even a finisher for you.
Yeah, and it's not hard to throw that thing in front of somebody. That's because it's a very combat-centric format. Someone's throwing, it's like, say, a Feldon's coming in. That's a 2/2. The cat and Feldon are going to trade. Yes, they're getting 2 cards to choose one from, but you get to flip your Johnny and get a trigger on your Yoshi. Or if, by all means, you're running that off meta deck where a Johnny is your commander, you're already popping. You've already flipped. So that is an option.
Yeah, and let's not forget, you do still get to play... I won't say white is one of the best colors, but it's close. Red is probably number 1. White is probably...
Yeah.
It's
Green's
close.
up there, I think. But
Green's up there, but you aren't seeing a ton of green in the actual meta.
No. I think... I
like
think
again, they have some of the biggest finishers for the decks that
they do.
have it.
But I think the issue is that, you know, the ramp is too slow. You know, you're doing your cultivates, you're doing your rampant growths, you're doing your farseeks. Yeah, they see play sometimes.
Realistically, you want like the hierarchs, you want the elves of deep shadow, the absence of
Llanowar elves, birds, you know. But I think the big thing is that's coming out of this set. While you said, you know, the flare of denial, the card that I kind of had pegged, which kind of gives you free ramp, is, you know, the flare of cultivation, which is 1 green sorcery. You may sacrifice a non-token green creature rather than pay this spell's mana cost. So you could sack your gilded goose, and after it's used its food, and just go get some basics. So you'll end up searching your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal those cards, put one onto the battlefield tapped, and the other into your hand. Then shuffle. So I think this card might see some play. I know I'm going to test it myself, and I think it goes along with the ideology of thinning out your deck as much as possible. So I think, you know, in the list that you let me run for Slimefoot and Squee, they had 2 basic lands, and so I think being able to fetch those faster, because when you're fetching on your fetch lands, you know, your Bloodstained Mires, your Windswept East, etc., you're going for your duels, going for your shock lands, and you're going for these brand new, amazing surveil lands from Murs of Karlov Manor.
Yes.
So, all right, to end this segment, what is the commander you think might make a jump into this meta?
It's Kudo, the bear.
Yes. So
I don't know if this is real or not, but
it's real. It got Wizards approved it.
Well, I know it's a real card, but in my head, I don't know if this is really something that I'll see play in the meta. But it's green and white. It's decent enough, and I could see some builds around where this is interesting.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not sold on seeing it in the meta. You may have to build and try and convince me of it, but I think this is probably going to see a lot of gameplay at your own home tables where people are kind of rule zeroing Kudo and Ayula together as the king and queen among bears. Kind of do your MH3, MH2 kind of bonding. But I think it has a good, so if you're running green and white, you know, like you are in your Tana deck, it's a 2-drop for 2/2 legendary creature bear. It's a green and a white cast, and then other creatures have base power, toughness 2/2, and are bears in addition to their other types. You know, I think it might work in your Yoshi Tana deck because Yoshi's getting +1/+1 counters. So you're already.
That's a thought. Yes.
It doesn't remove its text, it buffs it. So your cards mostly are, you know, Ruby's a 1/2, getting the +2/+2 effect. You know, so I think it could work in theory. I'm not sold on it being a commander itself because it's going to have to run a lot of like bear-centric stuff. So I'm not sure how much of those are viable in the realm of like 1 to 2 drop instant or sorceries. But
I see it more as a control build where you're specifically trying to lock down opponents' things, just making them not big. And basically what you're saying, kind of running a wider token Voltron.
Yeah, creating the 1/1s, make them 2/2s, or, you know, adding counters. You know,
your dorks become,
you know, your
threats.
You're running your O'Hare, the white O'Hare that runs the double, like triples your tokens, and you're running obviously in green, so you're running all kinds of, you know, counter. And,
you're running Questing Beast, just,
you know, the possibilities are endless when it comes to that, because green is a fantastic color for counters and tokens.
Yes.
So
it was just fringe enough that I wanted to bring it up as a potential commander. You may see it as a rogue, but other than that,
I think it's a good flavor for Ayula, who was released back in MH2. You know, it's nice to see bears coming in, doing their thing. You know, giving that brother bear energy, so to speak. So, and to end it off, you know, we kind of draw, I think, Mishra, myself, Garrett over here, we all really love the art of Magic the Gathering cards. And so I think we would like to end at least most of our podcast by kind of going through and saying what art from a card of the most recent set probably that we like the most. So I would like to start this off by choosing the goodest little boy there ever was, and that is Fibblethip Lost on the Range. Fibblethip is amazing. Not only do I have this commander built as an actual deck where I plot the most useless artifacts known to mankind and then storm off, but the fact that he's wearing a little cowboy hat, being from Texas, that's just money to me. And the giant dragons in the background, it's like he has no idea. He was just on Ravnica watching Taysa Karlov get murked, and then he's now in the middle of a desert watching dragons fight, scorpion dragons at that. So that has to be probably my favorite art from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. So, Garrett, what would you say is your favorite art from OTJ?
You see, I saw this question on the list, and immediately I'm like, I have to pick something that doesn't have a hat. Because while I love the cowboy theme, I think it's a thematic win, even though it's a little bit out of universe.
Yeah.
I think it is a very fun flavor win. There were too many hats for me. So I wanted to take a look at arts that I thought were a little bit more, took a little bit of an interesting take or were a little bit more creative. And one that jumped out to me was Archmage's Newt.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the perspective they used on the little guy was cool. He was bright, he was colorful in a way where I thought it was still fun. It still felt in universe. I liked what they did with the card. It's not the most relevant card in the world, but I liked the art.
Well, that's what art's about. What do you like? Who cares? Maybe you'll run it in a deck. You never know.
That would be something I'd run as a pet card, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the best part. Mishra?
Yeah, before getting into my number one pick, I just want to give a shout out to the borderless land arts from the set. Their use of negative space was sublime. It's an absolute slam dunk for the art direction and the execution by the artist, I think Salvatore Z. Yazzie. I apologize if any mispronunciation existed there, but for my personal cards, actually from the Commander set, not because I bought the deck or anything, but I really love the art for Embrace the Unknown by Quentin Gleam. For those of you who don't know, it's a sorcery that Impulse draws you 2 cards until the end of your turn. You can play them, and then it has Retrace for 2 and a red. But what I liked about it is that being from a plain state, it captures the sense and the feeling of staring down a huge storm cloud on the horizon very, very well. And that's a feeling that's well known, I think, to all of us at this point. And I just tend to love storm clouds in art. My favorite art pieces outside of Magic is about an oncoming storm, and the emotion that natural phenomena can create through an artistic medium in general, I think is really, really attractive to my sensibilities. And obviously the art on the card is like a fantasticized version of storm cloud, but the essence of that feeling is still there. And then the flavor text that goes along with it of just everyone's got to die somehow. I'll be damned if I meet my end cowering in some cellar. Reminds me of my dad and everyone's dad that just rips open a garage door to watch the tornado when it comes through town.
Yeah.
It's a bit ridiculous, but it
hands
calls
on
back
our
to who I
hips,
am.
and that tornado ain't gonna touch me. I'm invincible. Every Midwest man believes they're invincible to the high speed winds of tornadoes. I think it just comes with the territory. So, but I think that wraps up all the segments that we have today. I want to thank you guys for making it to the end of this podcast and sharing your time with us. I know it's a commitment. I know this one was a longer one. Just testing things out a little bit, trying to get the flow of everything. What you guys like, what we like. So next week will be a little bit shorter, a little fewer questions. But we, can't thank you guys enough for tuning in, and we're signing off for now. Thank you again. Have a good one.
Peace.
Like and subscribe.